Yo, what's up, KallaTheYapper, and I'm back with another reaction. Today I'm going to react to a video that I promised I was going to do a reaction to like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I'm going to react to this video made by KallaTheYapper called NIKKE is Just Better. This is in relation to Genshin Impact storytelling versus NIKKE storytelling, I'm pretty sure. Now, I will say this off rip. I've never played NIKKE, so I can't really speak on NIKKE storytelling. The only thing I can speak on is Genshin storytelling. So I think that's a caveat that I need to make clear now. However, for those of you who have played NIKKE, y'all give me your opinions and thoughts about this video in the comment section below, whether or not if he's, he hit the nail in the coffin, he's about 50-50, or he's just absolutely incorrect. I should say this as well. Okay. KallaTheYapper was the first content creator I reacted to when I first started doing this reaction stuff, right? He was my first ever reaction or channel I reacted to, and mind you, my reaction to his video that he made a couple months back. Let me see if I can find it on my phone. Give me a second. Yeah, it was my first reaction video after my Genshin storytelling video. It was Wuwa. Is Wuwa really better? And this was in comparison to Genshin versus Wuwa during the whole Natlan arc, which was about 5 months ago. Oh wow, this reaction was 5 months ago. This was my first hour-long reaction. So, yeah, I gotta show my respects because he's also come to my streams and I've come to his streams. Showing the support from content creator to content creator, all that cool dandy stuff. Now I'm going to show some more of my support by reacting to more of his content. And I shall even say this. Go check out his content. The views I'm seeing on his most recent content looking a little low. Go show this man some love. He deserves it. Anyway, let us start the reaction.
Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves bring beautiful worlds, great cutscenes and good gameplay. But if you want a gacha game that actually tells a good story with real characters and emotional weight, it's Goddess of Victory NIKKE.
I'm not gonna crash. Last time I did a reaction to one of his videos, I was on crash out mode. I gotta make sure not to come to that so I can at least have my thoughts straight. Okay. Granted, this video was 5 months ago. Well, no. This video wasn't 5 months ago. This video was like, actually, I can scroll. Actually, let me check. I can just scroll down right now. Well, yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. This video was 5 months ago. Yeah, this video was 5 months ago. This was before NIKKE came out. So I'm watching this video in context, knowing what happened with NIKKE. And I gotta say, yes, Natlan was not the best. It had its good moments. It kind of dropped the ball when it came down to certain character writing. At least for the Natlan cast, not every last character, but at least a good handful of them. And the 5th act dropped the ball as well, right? Even though it had a cool moment, it did drop the ball. Honestly, I feel like Natlan could have went on for a little longer than what it did, and they could have spent time fleshing out characters like how Star Rail did with Amphorius, which I will always praise the Amphorius chapter of Star Rail because it is a perfect example of having the story go on for a year worth of time while also giving time to shine for characters who deserve to get the shine when it's time for their time to like roll up on the spotlight, so they don't get left behind, so that their characters can be fleshed out, so we don't have a problem of, oh man, this character didn't get fleshed out in the story despite the fact that them being a story important character and whatnot. I'll always say Amphorius was the best chapter. And now with NIKKE, NIKKE is seeming to be the best #1 Genshin chapter we've ever had in the entire game. Seriously, deadass. Zenless and Wuwa, as of right now, kind of iffy on what's the best chapter between the two games. Or what their best chapter is. Renacida was not the best chapter, I'm gonna be honest with you. This thing felt disjointed as crap once we got to Septimont. It was like, I ain't about to get into all that. But anyway.
Okay. I've played all these games. I've followed the stories. And today I'm going to explain why NIKKE's narrative is not only better, but in some ways it completely outclasses.
The fan service most definitely make it better. I know why you play this game. Don't act slick. And granted, I could play the twin. We all got our sins.
His narrative is not only better, but in some ways it completely outclasses the others.
Okay, a fixed cast means real growth. Okay, so I don't talk about spoilers, but there are some cutscenes like and spoilers in the video. Okay, cool. So a fixed cast means real growth, aka meaning characters are part of a set group that we're following can have time to shine and flesh out. Again, this video was 5 months ago. I'm pretty sure we were still in the Amphorius chapter 5 months ago. Yeah, we're still in version 3.8 right now. Version 4.0 ain't coming for a little while for Star Rail. But yeah, Star Rail actually checked the box on this. Hold up, let's listen to what he means by this. Hold up.
One of the strongest things NIKKE does from the start is it sticks with a core cast. Rappy, Anise, and Neon. They are not swapped out every update. You're not being introduced to a new main character every patch just because they're on a banner. This allows for a long-term character development. You see that relationships evolve over time, they fight, they make mistakes, they forgive. It feels earned because the characters have actual story together and you're there for all of it. Compare that to Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves that constantly rotate character focus to a.
Okay. So granted, this video was 5 months ago. I need to keep prefacing that. But the fact that he mentioned Star Rail in this, knowing that 5 months ago we were in the Amphorius chapter where we followed a core cast of characters, aka the Chrysos heirs, that were the main characters of Amphorius' story. Each and every one of them had dedicated chat acts dedicated to their characters and their character growth as well. So this point that he's making in relation to Star Rail doesn't hold weight. That's my first pushback. For Genshin Impact 5 months ago, I guess you could, you could argue this point for Genshin Impact 5 months ago in the Natlan chapter because a lot of the main Natlan playable characters did not get a lot of, especially the ones who are supposed to be the heroes of their respective tribes, like Ganich, Mulani, Jalonin, Ian-san, Ororon, and Chaska. Like, only, let me count. Mulani, Chaska, Ororon. Like, only 3. Wait, Ian-san, Ganich. Wait a minute, hold up. I need to recount again. There's 6 tribes. Hold up. Oh, yeah. No. Hold up. Wait a minute. Give me a second. I gotta get my thoughts together. Jalonin, Mulani, Kanich, Ian-san, Chaska. Who the hell am I missing? Hold up. Give me a second. Let me search this up on Google on my phone. Who were the heroes of the tribes? Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay. Mulani, Kanich, Jalonin, Ororon, Chaska, and Ian-san. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there we go. We got all 6. Out of all 6 characters, only 3. No, not 3. Hold up. Of all 6, only Mulani, Ororon, and Chaska got in-depth character development for them or fleshing out of their characters. In terms of like the main Archon quests, granted, tribal quests were also necessary to flesh out their characters as well. So, if I count the tribal quests alongside the Archon quests, then yes, everyone got fleshed out except for Iensan, because the tribal quest for the Collective of Plenty wasn't about Iensan, it was about Chevreuse. So, knowing that, again, weird decision, when Iensan clearly was a part of the main arc quest and was the hero of the tribe of the Collective of Plenty, is like, it seems like they didn't. Just looking back on how Iensan was done dirty, she was done the most dirty. Honestly, her being a 4-star wasn't what was done dirty about her. It was the fact that they didn't give her any type of screen time at all to flesh out her character. Especially when you read her character information, there is a lot they could have done with that, but they chose not to. And instead, again, Verissa, I love my girl Verissa, but I have to acknowledge it. Verissa wasn't even a part of the arc quest. She was mentioned in passing by Iensan in the interlude before the final act, right? Because she was like, oh, Chevreuse is over there helping the Collective of Plenty because we got attacked over there, and she's over there helping, right? Type shit. And then her character gets released what, in version 5.4, 5.5? Can't really remember. But like, Verissa's the tribal quest for the Collective of Plenty fleshes out Verissa's character way more in comparison to Iensan, who got no fleshing out at all. So I will say that 5 months ago, when we were in Natland, this point that Cosetta is making is valid. However, where we are now with NIKKE, this point doesn't hold up. Again, one of my biggest criticisms about Natland was the fact that a handful of these characters, especially of the hero tribe, again, if we remove the tribal quest out of the conversation entirely and solely focus on the Archon quest, a lot of the majority of the 6 heroes, or at least half of them, did not get fleshed out at all. Jelonen didn't get fleshed out. Kanich didn't get fleshed out. Iensan didn't get fleshed out, but Mulani, Ororan, and Chaska did. Shoot, even the 4-star character known as Kachina got fleshed out and had a whole character arc in the first 2 acts of Natland's Archon quest. And it was like, it was good, don't get it twisted. It was great to watch. It was great to experience. But at the same time, it felt like they put a lot of energy to other characters and did not put that same energy towards Iensan at all, which is a shame, because this could have been something for Iensan instead. Because knowing her character information and how she is as an individual and the life she's led up to this point and where she is now, what Kachina is going through is like, in her story, is somewhat similar to Iensan's. Not entirely 1-to-1, but somewhat similar. And it's like, man, we could legitimately swap out Kachina with Iensan and have damn near somewhat the same story going on and story immersion. But they chose not to. They didn't even dive into the relationship between Iensan and Mavwika either until like after the Archon quest had concluded and whatnot, which kind of also sucks. It's like there's a whole bunch of things that Natland dropped the ball on that they didn't do what they should have done. That makes Natland feel like a really downhill slope of an act or of a chapter in the entire game. I mean, it shouldn't have been. Which is, again, the damn shame of it all. Because that does go back to the writing. It's not even how the characters look. It's just the writing that really effed up Natland. But thank God NIKKE has gone up in quality when it comes down to writing. We're back at a good standard now. Anyway, let us continue.
To align with the gacha banners. A new character...
Granted, the point he's making most definitely 100% aligns with Withering Waves. In comparison to Genshin Star Rail, Withering Waves aligns with what he's talking about verbatim. Again, Chisa, for crying out loud. Prime example. Lupa, another prime example.
Drops and suddenly
Brand, Jagona, another prime example. Phoebe, Zanny, prime examples. Shall I keep going? Anyway, let's continue.
Star Rail and Wuthering Waves that constantly rotate character focus to align with the gacha banners. A new character...
Oh, I should have mentioned this. Another thing too that he's not mentioning that I think is important context. When it came down to Amphorius, each and every one of the characters were coming to the end of their personal stories and meeting their fate. Which makes sense for why it is that we no longer focused on them or they no longer appeared in the story. For example, Anaxa. He met his fate and he died, air quote. with Castris. She went to the other side and, well, not died obviously, but she went to the other side and she played the role of death for the world and allowed for the souls to be able to enter death's embrace, warm embrace, and be able to enter the afterlife and potentially also reincarnate, right? So it helped with the overall cycle of life keep going, right? Aglaia, there we go. Aglaia, she met her end as well. She was in the story since version 3.0, and then her story came to a conclusion in version 3.3. Right? She dies physically, and the rest of her divine essence or just soul like ceases to, you know, continue existing or living after it falls into the golden lava, because it was her fate that she would meet that point. Then what happened to Tribi? Tribi was destined to just fade from existence one after the other, and she was already down two Phoebe, one Phoebe. I mean Tribi, my bad. I keep saying Phoebe, right? So Tribi only had two, or well, she only looked like she only had one version of herself left at the end of the 3.3 story, because Tribi looked like she was gone, and Trian was also gone as well. Trinin was the only one left. When it happened to Siedra and Hycelines, right? They met their fate as well. Siedra was destined to die, so she wasn't destined to see what happens in the future, which is why, because she was like one of the first people starting off the whole thing of the Chrysos heirs, hunting down for the core flames. So we actually went back in the past to meet this Chryso heir. Of course, we understand why she wasn't there in the present when we first arrived in Amphorius, because she was already long dead. Hycelines, also, she wasn't dead, but she was in the depths of the ocean just by herself, which is why we had Dong Hong comment on, oh, yo, something feels weird about this water here on Amphorius, right? Because he feels this divine presence, but I also feel like there's another presence in the water or some crap like that, right? And of course, it revealed it to be Hycelines. Who was in the Chryso heir? Oh, Evernight was a Chryso's heir. Not even because of the fact that she was from Amphorius, but more so because she took on the role of being not Aeon, but the Chryso heir holding the core flame of time. I'm pretty sure, right? Then you had Trailblazer hold the core flame of world bearing. Then you had Dong Hung carry the core flame of the earth. I forgot what the terminology is for earth for Amphorius, or preservation or something like that. You get the point, right? So it's like, I again, the point for Star Rail, again, this point for Star Rail doesn't really hold up, basically.
Rotate character focus to align with the gacha banners. A new character drops and suddenly the entire story revolves around them for one patch. Then they vanish from the narrative spotlight. With NIKKE, the main cast is always on focus. Let's be clear, Genshin's main quests don't disappear, they are still playable. But the issue is that the focus constantly shifts to whoever is on the banner. There's little narrative continuity. The story itself has...
I'm already disagreeing with this point that he's making here, but go on. Again, Nod Cry, again, Amphorius, rinse and repeat. This entire point that he's making legitly only falls on Withering Waves.
Narrative continuity. The story itself has, and the lore too, but not the characters. Once a patch ends, the spotlight moves to someone else. Honkai Star Rail is a big...
One thing I'm having, okay, my only issue now is that he's making this statement, but he's not providing an example to prove what he's saying in relation to Genshin and Star Rail. For Withering Waves, the proof is in the pudding. We can see it blatantly. There's, I can list so many examples when it comes down to Withering Waves in this regard, but for Genshin and Star Rail, this is kind of iffy, right? So I would have preferred that he'd give an example of what he's talking about. Maybe he will as we continue.
Bit better. It has semi-consistent cast with Himiko, Weld, Mars, Danhang, but even then, events tend to put a ton of energy into newly released characters while pushing others to the background.
Man, hold on. I need to look back 5 months ago. What chapter of Amphorius were we on 5 months ago? Because Dong Hung March 7th and the main character Trailblazer started taking like center stage in the story of Amphorius, like in version, I would say 3.5 onward. Yeah, from version like 3.5 onward, we started taking center stage. The main cast started taking the center stage of like, yo, we gotta save this world and whatnot. We gotta help save it. Okay, I'm scrolling back in time. 5 months ago, we were in version 3.5. Yep. We were in version 3.5, which was Siedra and Hyceline's release. Yep. Okay. Again, Amphorius point made earlier. Again, main cast for the Astral Express also have been present in the story as well throughout Amphorius, up clearly building up forward to where we are, to the conclusion of Amphorius' story, which was version 3.7. So again, the Amphorius, NIKKE, rinse and repeat.
Withering Waves suffers from this too. It's just less obvious because they tend to go a bit more in depth on the characters. But
I hard disagree with that point. Sorry, I just disagree with that point entirely. That's immediate pushback time. To say that Withering Waves goes deep into their characters in comparison to both Star Rail and Star Rail and Genshin is crazy work. Especially when referring to Star Rail, where 5 months ago we were in version 3.5. We were halfway through the Amphorius chapter. We were nearing the end. We were like 2 version updates away from version 3.7. Oh, technically 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. Technically, we was only 1 version patch away from the finale, which was version 3.7. So, saying that Withering Waves goes a little more deeper into their characters in comparison to Star Rail, where their quests were like, what, 8 hours long from version 3.0 all the way to version 3.7 is kind of crazy. Especially when they went in depth to these characters and developing them throughout those story chapters. So it's like, I don't know about this point, Chief. Genshin, 5 months ago, we were, okay, hold on, let me see. Genshin back 5 months ago, we were in version 5.8 5 months ago. Okay, version 5.8 was 5 months ago. This was the summertime event, which focused and delved into Bennett's character. Yeah, this was the limited time event. And now that 5 months ago, again, from my own recording, from 6 to 5 months ago, right here, 5.8 Archon Quest, the interlude for NIKKE also came out, which, mind you, the main cast for that was the Traveler, and Paimon, and Anefa, which, mind you, Anefa's character got in depth, and she had character development, and even obtained a vision / moon wheel as well in that story. So, I can't really agree with the take that he's giving. Again, for Natlan, I can understand it, but for version 5.8 into NIKKE and Amphorius 3.5 to 3.6 to 3.7, I don't agree. I just don't agree. The proof is like really staring us in the face right now.
First from this too. It's just less obvious because they tend to go a bit more in depth.
And also, him saying that it's less obvious in comparison is also kind of crazy. Granted, this was 5 months ago. Remember, this video was made 5 months ago, right? 5 months ago, as according to my live streams. Let me see, where were we at hold up, there we go, fix that. 5 months ago, okay, according to my streams, 5 months ago, we didn't have anything 5 months ago. Well, we did. I guess I was late to the 2.5 story for Lova. Well, for my stream schedule, it says 6 months ago. So yeah, 6 months ago for Withering Waves was the 2.5 story for Lova. That story fleshed out her character as a whole, but she was later forgotten and then randomly reappeared in the story at the end of Renaceda's entire chapter, which didn't feel like it made any sense at all, considering the fact that last time we saw her, she had quote-unquote died and went to her little special paradise that she made for herself. There was no explanation to how in the world she even was even here until the end of the entire thing, where she was like, oh, my paradise collapsed or some shit. It was just like, okay. Right? It was just like, There was no explanation to why she was even there to begin with at the start. Then they threw it in last second. Again, I think I made my point clear multiple times already.
Just less obvious because they tend to go a bit more in depth on the characters. But it still introduces new characters tied to each region or update, and the focus keeps shifting. There's no guarantee old characters will return or keep growing. This rotating banner focused structure destroys any long term attachment to a character.
This point doesn't hold true for Genshin, Star Wars, or Zenless, at least any of the Hoyo games, because all the Hoyo games bring back their old characters into the new story chapters. Is it every time? No, of course not. But when it's limited time event stuff, hangout events, or the expansion of a new region area, like, they will come back. In particular for Genshin Impact, they do come back. There's so many character interactions that have happened in limited time events that unfortunately aren't permanent, which need to be made permanent, by the way. I still stand on that, because there's a lot of cool character interactions that happened and cool character relationships that started in limited time events when it came out of the Genshin Impact. For Star Rail, a lot of the interactions happened in the main story quest, but also there are events in Star Rail where characters have met for the first time. For example, there was like that spooky event for Ho-Ho, right? Ho-Ho met with oh my goodness, I forgot the streamer girl name, and sword wielder with the chicken. I forgot I forgot their names. Forgive me, y'all can tell me in the comment section. But the point still stands. We got to meet them for the first time. Granted, we did meet them in the story, but that limited time event that was made permanent was the first time we got to see them all interact with each other and like that have a whole story dedicated to them. Granted, it was more so centered around Ho-Ho and her character and developing her as a character. For Zone Zero, we've had a lot of limited time events that made permanent, that built on character relationships, and on top of that, we've seen characters come back to the main plot even after they're bannered in, aka with the case of Zenless from version 1.10 all the way to 1.4, and of course from version 2.0 all the way to 2.5. We've had characters had their time in the shine on the banner, then they're still sticking around the area, still chilling with each other, and then we have the new faction come in, of course, but these characters are still within the area. They're still within the proximity of the new area. And so when it came down to like the final chapter, or not even the final chapter, maybe the chapter before the final chapter, or before that chapter, right? We would still see them on the street. They'd be like, bro, what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. All that cool stuff. And so I disagree with that point when it comes down to Hoyoverse games in particular. When it comes down to Wu-Wah, it's a different story entirely.
It's hard to get invested when every update a new character is in the spotlight. In contrast, NIKKE builds its narrative around a consistent squad. Their journey continues every chapter. NIKKE's characters behave like actual people. They are messy, they're emotional, they make mistakes and lash out. Happy can be cold, Anise can be rude, and Neon is on Copian about firepower. And they don't always agree. They fight with each other, they challenge each other, and when someone crosses the line, they are called out for it. There are scenes where they literally scream at each other or even physically lash out in anger or grief. That level of raw emotional expression is almost unheard of in any other gacha. In Genshin, Starville, or Wuwa, you almost never see the protagonists or companions truly lose it. There's no yelling, no curses, no confrontation. Everyone stays polite, quirky.
We see confrontations, but it's not to the nth degree. And also, it's entirely situational. For example, this what you're showing on screen right now, whatever is the reason for why they're beefing, it has gone to the nth degree to now they're pulling their guns out at each other. That's not what happens in Genshin, yeah, sure. But like, it's because the situations aren't to that degree where it is like, yo, I'm about to put a bullet in you. I'm about to drive my sword into your chest. It's never been to that nth degree. Unless it's like we're fighting an antagonist, then it's a different story. But like the comrades together, coming together to like have the conversation with each other, is like even like yeah, it doesn't get to this degree of like, oh, we're about to shoot each other type shit, right? But like if I can think of a conflict of interest that happened that we saw, like the relationship between like Lauma and Nefer that we saw, right? Lama and Nefer, they don't see eye to eye because they have two different belief systems with how they conduct themselves around people and just like how they conduct their business. Like Lama is willing to help regardless, where Nefer is like, I will help, but it needs to benefit me in some type of way if you want me to help you, type ish, right? And Nefer, you can tell that there's a side of Nefer that's like, okay, fine, I'll help, but she still wants her cut out of it. She still wants a benefit out of it. Even when it came down to like at the end of like Act 8, right? Never didn't like the idea of like the all the big groups in that land and not crime, my bad, coming together to form like this council or whatever, so that we can be able to, everyone could be able to support each other and side with each other and help each other, right? She wasn't too fond of it because she was still thinking, okay, how is it gonna benefit the curatorium of secrets, my business? How's it gonna benefit me? I don't find no benefit in this, or there's no need for me to do this at all. When it's like, if they need something, they'll just come to me. But like, I don't need to join this group or coalition that we were setting up, type ish, right? Again, Llama has a completely different opposing view of it, right? And of course, it doesn't go to the point of like drawing out the swords, right? Because it doesn't need to. There's no need for a physical confrontation when it's just about a clash of ideals. Right? And just clash of lifestyle. One of them came from the desert, a harsh, gritty life where you had to fight for what you wanted. You had to trick and scheme for what you wanted, where the other one came from a tribe of people who were like, yo, we praise and worship the moon god. Amen. Hallelujah. We eat off the land, being graced by the moon goddess. We drink off the water of the rivers, blessed by the moon goddess. It's a tight-knit community that's been around for a long time. Versus hers that kind of fell apart and died off because of like beef in the desert type of ish, right? That's the reason why they have two different points of view from each other. That's why they have conflict with each other. Now, they're not screaming at each other at all, but like they're stating their opinions to each other point blank. And even by the tone of voice, you can tell when one of them is like putting their foot down, being like, yo, I mean what I say when I'm saying this type of ish, which we see Never do a lot. So I don't really agree with this take that he has here. In particular, I don't really agree with it. Now, what was the point in Star Rail? If I can think of a clash between the main cast. I feel like the closest clash from the main cast when it came down to... Actually, for Euphorius, there wasn't really a clashing between the main cast of characters. There wasn't a real clash of them, right? Honestly, if we're being honest here. The closest thing to a clash between the main character and the cast of the characters was literally Evernight. She was March 7th, or she was a part of March 7th's existence, right? She clashed with the main cast because the way she sought to save the universe or just Amphorius from being destroyed by Iron Tomb or what have you was completely at odds with how the Chrysos heirs and Cyrene and the Trailblazer wanted to save Amphorius, right? It was completely in opposition with each other, right? It wasn't until the end of that quest where March 7th got to have a heart-to-heart with her other self, which is her alter ego, who only is doing what she's doing because she wishes to fulfill March 7th's wish, which is, still be with the Trailblazing Squad, trailblazing forever, right? Enjoying their time together, right? That's what March 7th wants. And Evernight acted on that wish, right? So when March 7th has a heart-to-heart with her, being like, yo, let's look back at these past memories of us, like, doing this, that, and the third, right? She concedes and she's like, okay, fine. I do all this because I care for you, right? Granted, she won't admit it outright, but we know that's the reason why she's doing what she's doing. And none of that, most of the conflict that happened against the main cast in Amphorius was from the people from the city. In particular, you had the Senate as well as like the shadow group that existed that killed Chrysos heirs because the people, or at least this one group in particular, just didn't like the idea of like continue on with this whole flame chase journey because they didn't see it as a net positive to them. They saw it as a net negative because they wanted to go back to the old ways of how things were, back to that old paradise. They didn't want to strive forward for this new potential future in paradise that could happen for them, right? So they were at odds with the Chrysos heirs, and they blatantly went about their opposition against them when they killed Aglaia, right? Or when they tried to attack Cyphera and failed because she folded them like salami, right? Not only that, not speaking on conflict in HSR, we also had Cypher and Aglaia. They were not on the best terms with each other at all. And it's only until after Cypher passes away and dies in version 3.3 do we find out the reason why they were on bad terms. It wasn't even bad terms because they had beef with each other. It was because of the fact that Cypher had made up a lie, which, thanks to her power as being the demigod of trickery, right? Because she used that power, she was the reason why the people at Amphorius had 1,000 more, was given 1,000 years instead of just 300. I can't really remember what it said, what the prophecy was, or the old man priest said. But he was like, yo, we only got like 300 more years before the Dawn light machine goes out, right? And so she made up a lie to the people of the city saying, yo, the Dawn light will last for 1,000 years. It'll last forever as long as people put their faith in it, right? And thanks to her power influences the world directly. So because of the fact that she told that lie and people believed that lie, the lie continued to exist for 1,000 years. And Cypher knew that she could not be around Aglaia because Aglaia has the ability to see the truth, can tell when someone's lying or not, right? That's what her golden thread ability can do, right? So Cypher, knowing this, was like, I gotta stay away from you, right? Even though she doesn't want to, she has to. And because of that distance between each other, right? And also Aglaia trying to get her to join the Chrysos heirs in like their fight against the Dark Tide and whatnot. Because there was a part of Cypher that was like pessimistic as crap, and cynical as crap about this whole Chrysos heir thing, which is why she didn't get herself involved in it at all for 1,000 years straight. Right, there's you couldn't imagine the amount of time she could have helped, but she chose not to because one, the lie she made, and she knew that she couldn't have that lie break, and two, because of her personal pessimistic nature and cynical view of the world, and of course herself, because she had self-hate for herself because of the fact that she was like, man, I'm just a thief. No one's gonna respect a thief as a hero. I suck in comparison to all these other Chrysos heirs type shit, right? So there was a personal conflict she had with herself and with Aglaia, due to the factors I just mentioned. Anyway, I'm on a spill.
No curses, no confrontations. Everyone stays polite, quirky, Even when tragedy happens, it feels toned down. NIKKE lets its characters be ugly when they need to, and that's what makes them believable. NIKKE doesn't pull its punches with antagonists. The villains are twisted, dangerous, and horrifying. They're not just misunderstood. You are meant to hate them and to understand that they are to be neutralized on the first opportunity. And even when they do get redeemed in some last minute twist, it comes with a lot of consequences, like complete memory wipes that completely changes the character in question. Meanwhile, Genshin and Starwell often struggle here. Most villains are either completely redeemed later with no consequences, killed off before they leave real impact, or written with so many layers and veils that don't really show the atrocities they commit that you don't feel the emotional punch of their actions.
I think I'm gonna disagree a lot in this video. Okay, so let's go to the antagonist point. Okay, let's rewind a little bit more because yeah, this is gonna be a, oh man, I'm gonna yapper in this video right now. Hold up. Let's think back to all the antagonists that we had in Genshin. I'm gonna start there before I go to Star Rail. For Genshin, our first technical antagonist, honestly, was Dvalin, which was a dragon. But he wasn't really a villain, seeing as one, he was being corrupted by the Abyss, and the Abyss Order was manipulating him. So we couldn't really call him a villain, per se. More like antagonist feels more of an accurate label for him. For Liyue Harbor, our antagonist for that was Child. He wasn't an outright villain, but he wasn't just an outright good guy either. He was an antagonist. He even states that, yo, us clashing with each other is nothing personal. It's purely just my job because I'm a harbinger. I was sent to get this gnosis. You were in my way. Of course, a fight was going to break out, right? And then we learned more about. Actually, I think we just mentioned this. People. Back when the game first started, people had the view of the Fatui being like, oh, this absolute evil group. There's nothing redeeming about them, right? Because of the interaction we had. But Child was the first character we got that was from the Fatui, who was a harbinger that gave us an insight that allowed for this way of thinking of maybe the Fatui aren't these absolute villainous pieces of trash that we assume them to be based off these actions that they've done, where they're deliberately trying to stop us from fighting against a ocean god, to stealing important cultural artifacts belonging to Mondstadt, to even taking the gnosis of these gods that these people worship. Granted, Ventis was taken by force, whereas Zhongli gave his up willingly because of a contract he made with the Sarita. Right? Put these two instances. Right? And we kept seeing more and more of that as the story progressed, because one, we found out about Fatui members who left the organization. It was being stopped from leaving. Granted, they eventually escaped thanks to the Traveler's help, or they joined the Fatui because they have their own personal reasons, because they either, one, they believe in what the Sarita is doing as just, and they want to follow her into battle against the gods. 2, financial reasons. 3, they had no other place to go because they were left alone to die in a ditch by their parents or by their friends or whatever. Like, there's a whole slew of reasons why people join the Fatui organization. And it's not this black and white absolute evil, right? Now, can a story have an absolute villain? Absolutely. Shoot, look at Dottore. Dottore is by far one of the most, if not the most absolute villain character in the entire game. Only coming second after the Abyss, because we know the Abyss seeks to corrode and destroy anything it comes across. So, with that in mind, he is a villain, blatantly. He's unapologetic. He's shameless. He also represents a sense of freedom from being shackled by fate and being shackled by the world that he was born into, because he knows that the world he's born into is fraudulent, right? We can understand him as a character, but he's still a villain. In comparison to Child, Child is an antagonist. Senora, since we didn't really dive deep into her character, I would have to label her as a villain since we didn't really dive much into her character. Granted, her past was tragic, as shown from artifact sets, right? So she had a tragic past, but she still right now I can't really tell if I want to call her an antagonist or a villain, right? I feel like leaning on villain feels more right rather than antagonist. But anyway, I will label her as a villain for now. Y'all may disagree. Express that in the comment section. When it comes to the next character that we fought against in Sumeru, it was Wanderer, aka Scaramouche. Wanderer, aka Scaramouche, was an antagonist. Did he do things that were unforgivable? Unforgivable? Absolutely. Guess what? The game does not bend over backwards to excuse the things he does at all, because they made it a point to be like, yo, you tried to change history. It didn't change anything. The only thing it changed was the name of the individual who did it, aka your former name. But that does not mean that the actions you did disappeared. And he accepts that wholeheartedly at the end of the interlude chapter for Sumeru. Right? Because he effed up the 5 raiding Gokuden in Inazuma, which, mind you, we have playable characters who are from that group, or descendants of the people from that group, from Kazuha to Ayaka to Ayato. Right? So we have characters from that group. The Wanderer blatantly said at the end of the interlude chapter that, yo, when the day comes that they seek their vengeance on me or something along them lines, I'll take my punishment head on. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm not going to act like I didn't do what I did. I'm going to face it, rightfully so, because I deserve it. You reap what you sow type shit, right? He was an antagonist less so than a villain, especially when we consider his backstory into account, and the fact that he was purposely manipulated by Dottore so that Dottore can use him any way he wanted. So it's like, he was a sympathetic villain, but like I won't even label him as a villain. I would label him as an antagonist. Now, when it came down to Fontaine did not have an antagonist. They had arguably, can we even call it a villain? Okay, I will label it as a villain. Okay, I'll label it as a villain. The narwhal that seek to devour the entirety of Fontaine, that was a villain, even though it was just, eating, because that's what a creature does. That creature did. It just ate food. And it's just unfortunate that the people of Fontaine were made up of the same stuff that it wanted to eat. And, it just did what it did. Granted, knowing that the narwhal belonged to Sertologi, one of the 5 sinners of Conria, and he made it into his pet in his journey all across outer space, away from Teyvat and whatnot. As of right now, Sertologi, I can't even really deem him as an absolute villain, but at the same time, he is a very self-centered individual and self-serving individual. He will only do something if it benefits him and solely him. He doesn't really do things out of kindness of his heart. In comparison to Nefer was a character that, like, even though she did things that only benefited her, she had a lot of moments where she kind of broke that and did things out. She did more than she signed up for because she felt the need to do that, which shows that she has a heart in comparison to Sertologi. Shoot, Sertologi saved Skirk's life, but he trained her just so that he can be able to have someone to squabble with, not because he actually did it because he actually cared for her. Diabolical villain, by the way. I'm labeling Sertologi a villain. Him and his pet narwhal are villains. Yep. Now, let's move on. Natlan's villain was the Abyss, so blatant villain. Absolute evil villain. There's no anything about that. Nodcry, we had an antagonist and a villain. The antagonist being Rear. Yes, he killed people. The story acknowledges that, and they don't brush away from the fact that he has done that. They even tackle it in the story. And for Dottore, we've had plenty instances of lore information, both in-game and outside the game, that revealed that Dottore is a genuine terrible human being who cares not for anyone else but himself and only him. He will only do things for the benefit of himself and only him. He's experimented on children. He's experimented on patients. He didn't even care for the well-being of his comrade that they were trapped inside of a underground desert tomb or whatever, right? He didn't even care for his friends, his comrades' well-being. He only cared about himself. And mind you, that comrade was the ancestor of another playable character that we have in game. So it's like, Dottore, truly a villain. Now for Star Rail, I'm gonna speed rush this as fast as possible because I know I'm yapping. For Star Rail, we had the first villain was Kokolia. She was an antagonist instead of a villain. The story even focused on the fact that how she ended up, getting to this point of absolute desperation and ended up turning into what she turned into. Even her death was portrayed as just sad and tragic, especially considering the fact that the girl that she had raised as her adoptive daughter was the one who had to put her down. So it was like, and she was doing everything that she believed was for the best of the people of Jarilo 6, that for them to survive this frozen wasteland world, thanks to the whole Stellaron being there, and the forces or manifestations of the Path of Destruction, the Antimatter Legion being present on that planet as well. So it's like she believed she was doing what everything she in her power for the greater good of her people, and of course it cost her her life and she died tragically, obviously. When it came down to the Lawfu, the only villain of the Lawfu was the freaking Lord Ravager, known as Fantilia. She is a blatant villain. All the Lord Ravagers are blatant villains. So taking that into consideration, his point that he was making about the villain characters in Star Rail doesn't really hold up. So we take this into consideration. We had legitimately a Lord Ravager as the villain for the Lawfu. Then we went to Penacony. Penacony didn't have a villain; it had an antagonist. That being in the form of Sunday and what he wanted to achieve. Because what he wanted to achieve wasn't villainous; it was actually pretty noble and heroic. Granted, it leaned heavily on the side of savior complex and this ultra desire to need to save everyone when you don't have the power to. So he was an antagonist. Then when we went back to the Lawfu again for the sword tournament, whatever, we had a blatant villain for that chapter, which was the leader of the Beowulfs, the Blood Moon Beowulfs or whatever, that enslaved the Foxians all them years ago. And so it's like, knowing that they were blatant villains, so I disagree with him on that point. Another villain we got when we went to, of course, Amphorius, which came next, or rather the banana chapter that we had after the sword tournament thing, right? We had one of the members of the Gean Society, which, mind you, not every member of the Gean Society is this great person. A lot of them are terrible individuals who will sacrifice human lives and whole planets for the sake of their genius endeavors, aka Dr. Ape or whatever. He turns whole planets into apes. That's what Dr. Ape does, and he's a member of the Gean Society. The Gean Society accepts both villains, heroes, antagonists, and everything in between. It does not matter. As long as you are of intellect of the nth degree, you are a member of the Gean Society. I don't really know how people get inducted. I gotta look into the lore of that. But yeah, that whole group is crazy. Ruan Mei, for crying out loud, has created life forms because she wants to create a pseudo. She tried to recreate an Aeon and created a freaking bug Aeon with quantum power. Like, this woman has been creating these life forms and she doesn't care for these things, yet she's trying to achieve some greater grand goal because she's like essentially abusing life, the essence of life, technically. But she's not a villain, she's an antagonist, obviously, or she's like neutral, chaotic neutral, I think. Anyway, Dr. Banana, blatant villain for what he did to Rappa, especially. Then we went to Amphorius. The main villain for Amphorius was Iron Tomb, and the one who created Iron Tomb being Xandar, aka the first member of the Genius Society, who sought to create Iron Tomb because he realized that that Noose And Noose's calculations had trapped people into this one line of thinking and not thinking beyond like the whole path structure, right? So he wanted to create Iron Tomb to shatter all that. So again, someone can correct me if I'm wrong about that lore or whatever. So he wanted to shatter that whole thing and kill Noose. And essentially Iron Tomb would have the head of Noose and be complete. And of course Iron Tomb would go about destroying the universe as well and pushing the universe towards its eventual destruction. Right? And Iron Tomb was just a nigga just born of hatred. Nigga hated everything. He don't care. Nigga wasn't even a real person. Nigga just hated everything. He hated just the idea of breathing. That's how much he hated everything. Now, the most recent antagonistic character we got was the Dahlia, who was a member of the Annihilation Gang. The Dahlia is really interesting. I would label her as a antagonist. Actually, I think it's more appropriate to label the Dahlia as a villain because we did get a little bit of, we didn't really get that much into her past, but from the dialogue we had with her interaction with Black Swan, it was alluding to the fact that they knew each other prior to this and that the Dahlia has done some pretty nasty work in the past. So we can label the Dahlia as a villain and not an antagonist because there was no point in the story that I remember where they were being like ultra sympathetic or framing the Dahlia's situation in her life as ultra sympathetic at all. If anything, she was just framed as like someone like, yo, I'm here to do damage in my way, in my own little fun way, because I like doing this shit, right? And there are promises I need to fulfill as well, right? So I will label her as a villain. So Genshin and Star Rail be flip-flopping between having villains and antagonists, basically. Whew, that was a long spiel. Let's continue.
And even when they do get redeemed in some last minute twist, it comes with a lot of consequences. Like complete.
Also, there were consequences when it came down to, the antagonistic characters being redeemed or not being redeemed when it came down to like their characters in both Star Rail and Genshin. I think that's pretty obvious for anybody who's played the game.
Memory wipes that completely changes the character in question. Meanwhile, Genshin and Star Rail often struggle here. Most villains are either completely redeemed later with no consequences, killed off before they leave real impact, or written with so many layers and veils that don't really show the atrocities they commit that you don't feel the emotional punch.
Again, this is another point where I would like for him to actually go in depth and like provide a character example, provide like 2 or 3 examples to like really hammer in your point that this is how Genshin or Star Rail handles their villain / antagonist characters, right? I would love that because then it would make his point hit harder. Instead of the video being 11 minutes, this video would technically be like 20 minutes to 30 minutes long if he actually done that, right? Because it helps paint the picture and, it helps his argument feel like it got more weight on it.
Of their actions. NIKKE keeps its villains relevant. They return. They leave scars. Their presence shapes the world and pushes the main cast to change. Most gacha games build their story around their banners. A character drops, a quest to promote them usually comes along. It's a business after all. They have to sell the character somehow. But once they're done...
Oh my goodness, he's using NIKKE footage. Oh boy. Again, this point does not hold strong at all when it comes down to NIKKE at all.
Selling, that character fades from the plot. Other games write side content that even though it adds to the lore, it barely matters to the main plot. NIKKE...
Oh boy, he's making this point while showing off Genshin in the background. This does not hold weight at all, considering the fact that one, the whole false sky thing, yeah, that was mentioned in the limited time event quest, and then end up being mentioned again in the main story quest in version 3. Then fully being shown to us on screen in version 5, and then full blown seeing it again, even to a greater extent, in version 6. So, ooh, I don't know about this one, Chief. The dragons being mentioned, the dragon sovereigns, and the fact that Genshin's world originally was ran by dragons, and that the gods of this world of Celestia are potentially just alien life forms who conquered and colonized this planet. Yeah, we didn't learn this information in a limited time event quest. We learned this in the new area that dropped, which was Inkonomina at the time. So people's perception of the world building of Genshin changed entirely thanks to that book that we got, and it started showing itself in the main story content. Like when in Sumeru we met our first Denjo dragon, or just dragon sovereign, and then in Fontaine we met another dragon sovereign. Then in that land we met another one, which was through a world quest, or fought a mimic of in the main story quest. Now for Nodcry, we haven't met a dragon sovereign yet. We may potentially meet one. Who knows? It's up in the air right now. But you get the point I'm making here. For Genshin Impact, the limited time events and the lore tied to them have directly impacted the main story. The problem is they just haven't made that content permanent, which sucks.
NIKKE's side stories actually matter. Characters change because of what happened on events and side stories. Their relationships shift. You see lasting impact. In Genshin, you can skip 5 patches and the characters still act the same.
That's not true. That's not true in the slightest. Sorry. Hard disagree. No. Because it's like, he's saying this in the same time when the story focuses on these characters and flesh them out and give them character development. Of course, at the end of that character development, when they've completed their story arcs, obviously they're going to be still the same, but they weren't the same at the start of their character arc to the end of their character arc. They were completely different. So of course they're going to feel the same. If, let's say, you saw Wanderer like change as a character in the interlude chapter for version 6.3, or not 6.3, my bad, in version 3.3, 3.4, can't really remember which one it was, right? And then you skip 5 patches, and then Wanderer comes back on screen, you're gonna be like, he's still the same. Obviously he's still the same because this is the end of his character arc where he changed as a character, as a person. So obviously he's gonna still be the same. I don't understand this point he's making when he's like, oh, they don't change at all. Is like, again, this is another moment of please provide proof to further back up your claim. Because there's a whole handful of characters I can list right now who have changed based off character relationships. For example, Mona and Official, these two niggas, oh my goodness, they did not get along at all when they first met. And from limited time events that we've had over and over and over again where they appeared, their characters and their relationship fleshed out to the point where it's like, oh, these niggas are spending time with each other, going to each other's houses, going out to eat with each other, spending time with each other, being invested in each other's personal, stuff and whatnot. It's like, bruh, what? Shoot, even the most recent reveal from the antidote, which I love the fact that Genshin has done this, which is the antidotes, the traveler's antidotes, where we meet playable characters from past regions who have come to Nodcry for whatever reason that they have, and we learned a little more about what they got going on right now, or find out a grand reveal and truth about them that was hypothesized, that theorized so long ago up to now. For example, Official. It's finally been revealed that Official's Oz was a creation thanks to Nicole, and like Official, because like she manifested the idea of Oz into existence because of like storybook stuff. I forgot what it was in particular, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It was such like, oh crap, they finally revealed this. This is so crazy. Because a long time people have been theorizing about that, right? So it's like, again, I disagree with the claim he's making here.
In NIKKE, if you skip 5 chapters, you'll be lost because everyone will be acting differently. As for the Wuthering Waves, solid first impressions, but similar issues. Wuthering Waves made a strong first impression with its main story mostly and especially after the Black Shores release and Green Zeta release. It feels a little bit more focused and emotional than Genshin or HSR most of the
I don't really agree with that.
time. But
Granted, that's his own personal opinion.
let's be honest, it's already falling into the rotating cast trap. Characters come and go, and future updates will likely focus on new banner units.
Yeah, this entire take he's had for Withering Waves, on some real shit, it only applies to Withering Waves. Like, we just had a whole beef session about playable characters coming back to the main cast and being part of the main cast and focusing on the main plot that's happening. We legitimately just have a whole beef going on with that, legitimately like 8 days ago. So, no, looking back at this video from 5 months ago, this video couldn't have been more, in my opinion, off base with his claim and his takes. Especially when you got niggas out here defending Withering Waves, writing to myself, oh, the story is only about the main character and only the main character. That means other characters shouldn't be a part of the main story and focused on, despite the fact the game actively focuses on side characters as well. If they didn't, why the fuck are we getting new playable characters for? Genshin Impact focuses on its main cast of character, which is Paimon and Traveler, while simultaneously focusing on the main group that we focus on in the new region that we are going to all the damn time. Two things can happen at the same time. Again, go check out that Blazon reaction. Blazon is a damn fool for making such a claim.
There's no guarantee the emotional core of the first characters will carry forward. It's still early, but the risk is real. Also, while Wuwa gives you more lore and backstory, its characters don't express the same interpersonal emotion you get in NIKKE. Nobody's slapping their friend mid-sentence because they were going to do or say something very stupid. No one is calling each other out for bad decisions. Honkai Star Rail does a better job than Genshin in terms of a fixed core cast. March, Dan Heng, etc.
Well, yeah, because the core cast for Genshin is the Traveler and Paimon. That's the core cast. And we've seen the change and the evolution of those two characters throughout the entire game up to this point. We've seen it. Shoot, I would even say we got a fleshing out of these characters and their relationship with each other since the start of the game till now. So that's what Genshin's core cast is. Genshin's core cast is legitly Paimon and Traveler. Now we have the core cast that we follow, which is those two, and then we have the core cast of the current region, which is, of course, the handful of characters we do meet for that story. But there's the difference between the two. We have multiple main casts in the Genshin, basically.
Are with you a lot of the time, but even then, they
also, Paimon has argued with the Traveler as well. She's also had moments where she's upset with the Traveler and being like, I can't believe you did this, right? Even if it's over something petty. So, like, the idea of this doesn't happen in Genshin isn't really true. Shoot, there's a moment that's like I would deem as emotional or just a very good character moment where in Sumeru, the Traveler was stuck in the Sumsero cycles, right? And the Traveler got so upset that he was like, man, I'm done with this shit. Ran up to the Ermites that were repeating in the cycle as well, because he met Dia and Durizon. They were being attacked by the Ermites, or mercenaries. The Traveler took them down, easy peasy. He also told Dia to go kick rocks and get out of here with Deardith. Dia was shocked by this emotional reaction from the Traveler, being like, bro, what's your deal, right? And she left with Durizon. Traveler mopped the floor with these niggas. And then Paimon had responded, being like, yo, did you just take your anger out on them? And the Traveler was like, don't worry about it, forget it, bro, right? It was such an important character moment. And I think people really miss these moments when they're either skipping around through the story or they think that the Traveler doesn't have a character at all or have a relationship with Paimon at all and think that it's non-existent. That's the only way you miss moments like these. I promise you. You go back through the story and go back to these moments where the Traveler and Paimon are having interactions with each other, you will see the development of that core cast. Or rather, just the fleshing out of it. Because they were already cool with each other off rip when they first met. Because Traveler saved Paimon. Paimon helped teach Traveler how to speak the native language of Teyvat. right? And also promised to help them find their sibling. So it's like they're together for mutual respect for each other and gratitude and like promises being made, right? So that's the foundation of the relationship. And they've had their like petty back and forth. They're like, oh, talking shit to each other type ish, which is really cool as well. But I guess again, many people just miss that. And I think another reason why people miss that is because they don't like Paimon because of her high pitched voice or former high pitched voice. So therefore, they kind of just skip anything Paimon says, which kills any type of viewing of her relationship with the Traveler. Which, mind you, peep game. Some of y'all may not know this, but Paimon clearly has a dependence for the Traveler. Like it's somewhere on the level of it's like leaning on the level of I guess toxic, not toxic, but like over dependence for the Traveler. Like genuinely, Nagai's story even showed it again, where when the Traveler was gone, Paimon was breaking into tears. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to act. She was just bawling her eyes out, right? Because she's been through all these crazy stressful moments with the Traveler being there, right? And when he's not around, she loses her ish entirely. She starts freaking out. She doesn't start getting schizophrenic, obviously, but like she has an emotional reaction to when the Traveler has gone away for too long, whether it be he's in danger or he just went out because like, yo, we got to do this mission. You stay here. I'm gonna go there. I'll be back soon, right? Back in Sumeru, yet again, the Traveler and Paimon were separated only for a brief amount of time. He comes back and they get their memories back after the cycle restarted, thanks to Nihida, and Paimon immediately starts bawling her eyes out. She's like, bro, you were gone for so long. Where you went, twin? Right? Again, important. That's the core cast, the Traveler and Paimon, getting fleshed out, showing us how their relationship is, right? That's a good thing, objectively a good thing. So again, I don't believe this point holds weight when it comes down to Genshin in particular, or Star Rail.
A lot of the time. But even then, they rarely show deep emotional range. You will get well written lore, though I can't say the same for the dialogue. But there's no yelling, no meltdowns, no serious interpersonal fallout.
No meltdowns is kind of crazy. Falling outs. Let me think on the falling out point. Have we ever had a falling out with another playable character? The closest falling out thing that we're gonna have in Genshin is probably the Traveler with their sibling. That's gonna be probably the most falling out that's gonna happen in the entire game.
Somehow, NIKKE does a better job at showing.
Also, the Traveler has also had their relationship with I forgot homeboy Dainsleif. Like the Traveler's relationship with Dainsleif is also being hinted to being tested in the water, because like we know in the future when we get to the end of this game that the Traveler will have to fight Dainsleif to tell him to get out the way so that he can go save his sister, right? We know this to be true because of the Teyvat teaser trailer. And the only reason we're together with Dainsleif is because of the fact that we have a mutual shared goal here of stopping the Abyss Order, right? Like there will be like, even Dainsleif told the Traveler like, yo, in the future you're gonna need to pick whose side you're on. You either with me or you're against me, type ish, right? So that line is already drawn in the sand. Now they can still be cordial and respectful towards each other when they meet again, obviously, but knowing that stipulation still exists and what's going to happen in the future, that's blatant blatant conflict between mutually agreed partnership.
Expressions and movements while being a fucking visual novel. NIKKE characters will yell at their superior officers. They'll snap at each other. They'll put their friend in their place because the stakes demand it. Star Rail and Genshin play it too safe emotionally.
I think the reason why they play it too safe emotionally because the scenarios are completely different from each other. The scenario with NIKKE, it seems like it's ultra desperate because whatever war they're fighting. So obviously the pressure is high. Star Rail again and 4H chapter, they were all together with this goal of fighting against this threat to their world, not to the threat of a neighboring country. And even then, they had internal conflict happen. Genshin, same thing. There was no beef with another nation. It's beef going on internally with the nation because they're being attacked by an antagonistic threat that can threaten not just their nation but the entire world, or an antagonistic threat that's just fucking up their nation, right? So obviously everyone comes together and be like, yo, we all got to come together and plan how to handle this. Of course, not every person in the nation, but the core members that we need. Now, I will argue this: the story for Natlan could have been a little more spicier if they had the tribes not agree with each other off rip on how to deal with the abyssal threat. But because the fact that they wrote Mavwika the way that they did, it didn't really leave room for conflict because everyone just agreed with Mavwika's plan, despite the fact they had no idea what her plan was. So that's an instance of that story could have favored from having some internal beef happening with the tribes.
NIKKE's story isn't just good for a gacha. It's just good. NIKKE doesn't treat its story like a way to sell characters. It's the pillar of the game. It has to deliver. It's not just a tragic backstories or quirky personalities. It's people growing through war, trauma, friendships, and failure.
Again, like I'm saying right here, like he just mentioned one of the big aspects of Nikke's story, which is war. They're in a war against. I'm not really sure what they're fighting against. I'm pretty sure they're fighting against other rogue AI, right? Or like people who like set up this war to begin with, which is why the war even started to this war even happened, so that they can make money or whatever, or have control over their nation or government. Really not sure. I think that's the gist of the lore I remember of from looking at a different Concepta video. But like, anyway, yeah, like the situation is between Genshin's world and Star Rail when it comes down to the worlds that are visiting or nations they're visiting and like helping deal with the crisis of is completely different from like this war against the war scenario that the people in Nikke are in. Is completely different, which is why the story, has more personal internal conflict going on. Because like niggas can backstab you in a war scenario way more than in a scenario where it's like, okay, there's a nation, there is a threat to the entire planet going on right now. It threatens not only our nation, but every nation on the world. There is no such, there's hardly going to be any backstabbing. Or if no backstabbing at all. Like, for example, if there was a meteor hurtling towards Earth, how many people are going to backstab anybody trying to stop that meteor from hitting the planet? The answer is 0. And the likelihood is 0.01%. Right?
Failure. Look, Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves all have their strengths. Behind all the bloated dialogue and pacing issues, mainly in Genshin and Honkai, there's actually a
Honestly, I feel like Genshin and Honkai Star Rail have fixed their pacing issue. Personally, I really don't see the pacing issue at all, at least with the most recent content.
lot of great stuff, rich lore, and impressive world building. These games are not bad by any means in terms of story, but NIKKE just does it better. It delivers an emotional story with real weight and builds characters' relationships that feel earned and, most importantly, feel human.
I mean, that would be the case. Well, obviously, that probably is the case. Like, I wonder, do the core cast of Nikke characters don't F with each other at all when they first meet each other? If that is the case, of course, the natural buildup of their relationships throughout this story would feel more real because they don't F with each other off rip, right? I think that's a pretty proper thing to say in response to this. Because again, I haven't played Nikke, so I can't really speak on it. But from how he's talking about it, it sounds like these niggas didn't F with each other at all at the start and beefed with each other as the story progressed, and of course, came around to each other to like further cement their character arcs and whatnot. Now, I could be wrong. Someone can correct me in the comment section.
The others are great, but NIKKE is just greater. And that's why, in my humble but 100% correct opinion, NIKKE has a better story than the
I'll let him get that off. Could be a little flagrant. We love to see it.
Big Four right now.
Honestly, personally, I want him to make an updated version of this video, especially with the most recent content from Star Rail and from Genshin. I need an updated version of this video. And this moment that seems to be on screen looks like a very important character moment that has been building up to this point. That's what I'm getting from this scene. Shoot, I feel like I need to go watch the anime then. Anyway, I appreciate, okay. The video is a good video. Of course, I have my pushbacks, obviously, because I'm only talking about Star Rail and Genshin in this conversation, and a little bit of woo-wah. Again, like I said earlier, I would love for him to make an updated version of this video with the most recent content from both Star Rail and Genshin when it came down to the Amphorius chapter, and of course when it comes to the Nightcry chapter of Genshin. Withering Waves honestly is the only one that, in my opinion, fits the bill of his criticism the most out of all three. Like, oh my god, Xenophon Zero don't even fit this criticism either. So that's why it's not part of this conversation. The video is a good video. I would give it a like to show my support, obviously, show my respect. Cause I said I was gonna react to this video, and I'm finally getting to it. Y'all can tell me how y'all felt about this video, whether or not he was again on the money, or 50-50, or completely incorrect, in the comment section below. Like, sub, turn on notification bell, join my YouTube community Discord if you wish. Link is on my channel. Check out my yapping topics and my yapping reaction content as well. I tried to make this reaction underneath the hour, but I couldn't because I was on a yap fest. I'm sorry, I needed to express, such things that needed to be expressed. Yeah. Anyway, Cosetta, hopefully you enjoyed my reaction and probably even have your own personal pushback to give in the comment section below. Anyway, this is KallaTheYapper signing out. Peace.